Hey guys, I just started a new series. I know I'm still in the middle of the Negima arc reviews, and I'm not gonna stop. But I want to take a little bit of a break to talk about the meat and potatoes of really any story. The characters. Cause Negima has some great ones. I've said this before, but I love Class 3A. They're also full of personality, and I would be doing them a disservice if I didn't make some time to spotlight them. So in this series, I'm going to go through each and every member of Class 3A and discuss their character arcs, personality traits, and their overall roles in the story. Before we get started, some of you might be thinking that this sounds very similar to Tekken 101's Class 1A character discussion series that he did a few years back. I understand why you might think that, but trust me, this is completely different. After all, that was Class 1A. This is Class 3A. See? Completely different. Seriously though, huge shout out to Tekken for probably inspiring this video on some level. He is hilarious. I'll leave a link to his stuff down below. If you enjoy my videos, even a little bit, trust me, you'll love him. And when you get there, tell him I said, notice me senpai. But back to Negima. Let's start off our class 3 discussions with the first student in the class. Seat number 1, Aisaka Sayo, our resident ghost girl. And is it just me, or does every harem manga have a ghost girl now? There's Yuna from Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs, Oshizu from To Love Ru, and Rosalie from I've Been Killing Slimes for over 300 years. Is this tokenism? Do these mangas need to get cancelled? Do we need to start a ghost washing hashtag? Just to be clear, this is a joke. You guys do know that, right? This is not some weird political metaphor. Please, do not clip this. Okay? Thank you. Anywho, despite being seat number 1, Saya was ironically one of the last students we're introduced to. She doesn't get any page time until chapter 74. But unlike the other girls, who are always hanging around in the background, we don't see her at all. But there is a good reason for this. She is a ghost. Like I just said, we literally can't see her under normal circumstances. But at the same time, it's not like she comes completely out of nowhere. Just like all the other girls, she appears in the very first chapter on Negi's class roster, which in and of itself is a huge, huge foreshadowing device, and I could honestly talk about it for an entire video. But for right now, let's just focus on Seiya. Look at what Takahata wrote under her name. Don't move her seat. No explanation, no context. Just don't move her seat. Which must have been really awkward for Negi, because that means he was just lecturing an empty seat for months. But he knows that there is supposed to be a student there. And so do you if you are paying really close attention to that class roster. Akamatsu may not be the best writer in the world, but I won't let anyone say he doesn't plan out his story. Sayo died over 60 years ago, in 1940, and has been stuck roaming her middle school ever since. She can't remember how she died or anything about her life. Like with many portrayals of ghosts, she cannot leave her haunting place, and she's tethered to the world of the living until she gets rid of whatever regrets she had in life. Which is probably why they said not to move her seat. She can't change seats. I don't know what would happen if someone else sat there at the same time, but I don't think it would be too pleasant. Unlike typical ghosts, she doesn't have the ability to make herself visible to regular people. She's a very weak spirit, so she really has no way of communicating with anyone. Which is really, really sad, because Saya was really shy and timid, and she probably wasn't able to make many friends when she was alive. That's the regret that's keeping her from passing on. She just wants a friend. But now that she's a ghost, she can't interact with anyone even if she tried. And she's been stuck wandering her school for 6 decades. That is seriously depressing. Although she isn't confined just to the classroom or the school building specifically, she has a little bit of leeway because she can go as far as a convenience store. But that still doesn't change the fact that she can't talk to anyone. And despite being a ghost, she's still afraid of the dark and somehow even manages to trip without feet. So, yeah, she's just a mess. But the main issue is still that no one knows she exists. Well, almost. Remember, Takahata said not to move her seat, and she's still on the roster after 60 years, so he must have known. And Neji can sense her a tiny bit. Even though he can't actually see her, he gets the feeling that someone is there. Although Sayo herself says that even exorcists and shaman can't detect her. To which I say, how can you possibly know that? Are you trying to tell me that they sent real exorcists and a shaman into Mohora? Is this school haunted by ghosts besides Sayo? I feel like this really needs to be explored. But anyway, the point is she can't be seen until Neji kind of notices her. So she, understandably, gets really excited at the chance of maybe being able to talk to someone for the first time in 60 years. Meaning she's going through everything she can to try to make a friend. This turns out to be a really, really bad idea. As it turns out, she actually can be captured on photo if she really tries. Only she looks like this. And I guess she's not as weak a spirit as she originally thought, because when she tries to talk to them, she ends up writing messages on the wall in blood, and accidentally levitating desks and chairs. Which is hilarious, but it makes me wonder, are all the ghosts from horror movies actually innocent and just misunderstood? Huh, food for thought. Through a series of comical misunderstandings, they eventually realize she doesn't mean any harm, and offer her their friendship. Then, with her last wish fulfilled, she fades away and finally passes on. Oh wait, nope, she's actually still here. Actually, let's talk about this for a second. At first, this just seems like a one-off joke, which it definitely is, don't get me wrong. It's actually a relatively common gag in anime and manga, where a character dies for a second, but then just comes right back. But really think about it. Her regret was not being able to make friends. After Neji and Asakura became her friends, she should have passed on. We literally see her fade away. It doesn't make much sense until you remember that Mohora has a magic barrier around it. If it can keep vampires and demons out, it can probably keep ghosts in. So she's still bound to the school, but not because of her unfinished business, just because she can't escape the barrier. Which honestly probably doesn't matter at all, but I just thought it was interesting. Anyway, after that whole mess, she sticks around and becomes really good friends with Asakura. So I guess she can just make herself visible to anyone now, because that's never really an issue again. She hangs out with her for the rest of the school festival, but she doesn't really do anything important. We see her a little bit in the beginning of summer vacation. Unfortunately, no one's at school, so she just has to sit alone in an empty classroom and we're back to being sad. Luckily for her, she isn't restricted to just the classroom. She goes to the convenience store, and when she does, we get this really weird scene where Zazie comes up to her, stares right at her, so I guess she can see her too. But she brings this group of weird, no-face blob things with her. They don't attack her or do anything threatening. They just kinda sit there. I guess I should wait to explain this until I make a Zazie video. But honestly, there is no explanation. Seriously, what the hell are these things? They can apparently see Sayo, and no one else can see them. So maybe they're ghosts? But they're hanging around Zazie, so maybe they're demons? But they also don't talk or interact with anyone. So maybe they're just magical constructs that Zazie summons. I have no idea. But after that bit of awkwardness, Asakura shows up to invite her to go watch the fireworks together. And let me just say, this is unbelievably wholesome. There's no way Sayo expected her to come. Why would she? It's summer vacation. School is the last place you would expect her to be. But Sayo was her friend, and she was all alone, so she came to check on her. Seriously, if you have a friend you haven't seen in a while, give them a call. See if they want to grab lunch or something. That can really make someone's day. Next is the Magic World arc. And Sayo does go to the Magic World with the others. How is that possible if she can't leave the school? Well, we don't need to speculate about it, because there is an actual explanation. In kind of a blink and you miss it scene, Asakura gets this doll from Eva for Sayo to possess, and when she's in it, then she can leave the school. Did you ever wonder why whenever she appeared in the Magic World arc, she was in this little chibi form? I know I did, because I completely forgot about that scene. This is the one scenario where the stuff I said about the barrier might actually be relevant. The doll body will let her get past the barrier, but I don't know if it would have worked if she was still an earthbound spirit. I mean, it probably would, because Asakura asked about that specific problem when she gets the doll. I'm just inserting my own headcanon at this point. But her puppet body is pretty interesting. It may seem kind of convenient that they had such a specific item just lying around until they needed it, but remember, they got it from Eva, and one of her titles is the Puppet Master. She literally has a whole resort full of magic dolls. If there was anyone in the world that had one of these things, it would be Eva. As to why it looks like Sayo, it really doesn't. The thing she actually possesses is a straw effigy inside the doll. The outside is really just for aesthetics. We don't know where she got it from, but I think Eva made that too. We know she is into dolls, and not just the magic kind. She really liked the dolls since she was a kid, so maybe she learned how to make them at some point. Not just with magic, but with an actual needle and thread. And though she won't admit it, she actually does care about her classmates, so I don't think this is too out of character for her. But this video is about Saya, and her doll body seems to have a bit of a learning curve to it. At first, she can only take a couple of steps before falling over, which makes sense considering she hasn't had legs for 6 decades. But in the magic world, she can actually fly for at least a few seconds. Her main job in the magic world is to track down the other members after they get separated. One of Asakura's drones is modified exclusively for her, with a little chair so she can ride on it when she sends them out to search. I guess strictly speaking, Sayo doesn't really need to be there. They could have just sent the drones, but at this point, no one knows she has them. If they just sent a random drone cam, they might assume it belongs to an enemy and destroy it or run away. If Sayo goes, she can actually talk to them. This is exactly what happens when she finds Ku in chapter 207. Late in the arc, there's a one-off joke where Haruna makes a new body for her with her artifact. Unlike the doll body, this one is full-sized, and she can fire lasers and rocket launchers. She's essentially a robot. Like I said, this is just a joke, and by the very nature of Haruna's artifact, it only lasts a few minutes before it disappears. But we do get to see it again, very briefly during the governor's ball, when she starts shooting people down with Sagitamajika miniguns. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of the ball, this is also where she displays a very weird but extremely useful ability. When Kurt invites Negi to his suite, where he shows him the video that contains his entire backstory, he only lets him take 3 people with him. But this is obviously very important information that they need to relay to the rest of the group. That's where Sayo comes in. The doll sits on Asakura's shoulder, and the real Sayo uses her spirit body to connect to one of Asakura's drones outside, which projects what she sees to the others. 'Cause I guess ghosts can do that. I guess it sort of makes sense, because it's not a real drone cam, it's a magical artifact. It doesn't send electrical signals, it would transmit magical energy. I guess Sayo's spirit waves are close enough to do the same thing. Or whatever. It's worth noting that Asakura also has a drone in there with her, but that drone can't transmit to the outside for whatever reason. Most likely due to all the magical security that Kurt has in that room. But Sayo can, so I guess ghosts are just undetectable to that sort of stuff. Later, when they go to the Gravekeeper's palace, she functions as the scout, flying around and relaying information to the rest of the team. Then, during the final battle, she takes a bullet for Notica and gets petrified by one of Fate's spells. You might think that this isn't much of a sacrifice considering she's a ghost, but she doesn't just pop back up in ghost form. It seems like the petrification actually seals her inside the doll, which, if she stayed conscious that entire time, would be a very real sacrifice, because she would be trapped there forever. So yeah, Sayo MVP. She gets revived in the end, along with all the others that got petrified, but she doesn't have any notable appearances in the last arc. She does graduate with the rest of her class. I don't know how she manages to hold the diploma, or what she's gonna do with it afterwards. Cause again, she is a ghost. But whatever, she does. Right before the series ends, we see the class roster again, complete with all the notes that Negi has made in it over the course of the story. Which is such a great detail. Man, I love this manga. For Sayo, he wrote, Heart with the Headmaster, which I guess means that she had a relationship with Konoemon. I know that sounds extremely gross, but if Konoemon is in his mid-70s, which he does look, they would have been about the same age when she was alive. Which makes me even more curious about her life. But she never remembers, and Konoemon never interacts with her on panel. But Neji apparently figured all the stuff out off screen. He also wrote, Investigation Continue. So it looks like he was investigating her death. And right under that is Incident During War. Considering she is from 1940, did she die in World War II? That is dark. But again, this is all speculation. We don't know exactly what these notes mean. But now, let's talk about the epilogue. I don't want to talk about it, but we gotta talk about it. If you're a Negima fan, you probably already know that the manga ended very abruptly. I'm not gonna get into all the legal reasons why, but the point is, a lot of plot points and character arcs were never fully resolved. However, in the final chapter, we do get a brief where are they now epilogue for each student. Sayo's is pretty vague, so I'll just read it to you. After many twists and turns through the besieged Mahora, with Neji and his friends via the Cassiopeia, she was released as a residual ghost of Mahora Academy. Afterwards, she mysteriously did not pass on, but continued on as the guardian spirit of Asakura Kazumi, working as her partner. Where do I begin with this? It sounds like she finally gets unbound from Mahora, apparently by time travel? I know I haven't mentioned it before, but the Cassiopeia is Chao's time machine, and they apparently use it to free her spirit. But she still can't pass on for some reason. So she just sticks around and helps Asakura. Maybe that's why she can't pass on, because she wants to stay with her friends. We see her again in UQ Holder, so she's still on Earth, 80 years later. She's been stuck here for 140 years after her death. I wonder what's keeping her here at this point. Does she still have some sort of unfinished business? Or has she just been here so long that she lost the ability to pass on? Interestingly enough, she doesn't join UQ Holder, even though we just established that she was freed from Mahora. Personally, I like to think that she stays there for sentimental reasons. She was trapped in that school for 60 years. She was only able to escape because of her friends, and they took her on this grand adventure, but she never would have been able to do it on her own. So now that most of her friends have passed away, going adventuring without them just doesn't feel right. So she just goes back to what she was doing before, haunting Mahora, watching over all the new students that pass through, and helping her remaining friends however she can. And that's Sayo. She doesn't have a really big dramatic character arc, especially compared to some of the girls we'll get into later. At the end of the day, she's just a shy girl that wants to make friends, who's also a ghost. Not a bad one to start off with. Next up, of course, is seat number 2, The Kid, Akashi Yuna. If you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe and turn those notifications on. I'll see you there. Until then, this is Akari, signing out.